2 days away from the federal election, and the race in some Ontario ridings is getting tighter.
We've come to the conclusion that this individual can no longer be a Liberal candidate in this election.
The Liberal campaign is cutting ties with another Ontario candidate over a sexual assault charge that was ultimately dropped. Plus,
voters can be shifting, and sometimes polls cannot catch that, and sometimes we don't see it until Election Day.
we'll take a closer look at some of the swing ridings where other parties are looking to make gains. And
if we want to get to 90%, we have to do 300,000 plus more vaccinations.
over 90 vaccine clinics are running this weekend, hoping to increase vaccination rates in specific areas.
This is CBC Saturday News.
Good evening, I'm Marivelle Tarouk. There are just hours left in the federal election campaign, and those vying for the votes are trying to use every last appearance to their advantage. Marian Warnica reports from Ottawa.
On the 35th day of a 36-day campaign, a burst of momentum for the Green Party.
The Greens are out in full effect.
A jubilant Annamie Paul, whose party has struggled with infighting, hyped candidates in British Columbia. Former leader Elizabeth May met her flight in at a media event, an overt display of unity, all on the same day they released costing of their party platform.
How is everyone today?
In Ontario, where Conservative leader Erin O'Toole is spending the final push, there was no new policy to announce. Instead, a sharp focus on the narrative that this is a two-party race.
Your frustration will be double if we wake up Tuesday morning to another Justin Trudeau government.
And an awareness of the potential for vote splitting, as the People's Party of Canada, behind leader Maxime Bernier, has gained support.
Make no mistake, voting for other parties that cannot win, no matter how aggrieved or angry you may feel, will not get Trudeau out.
Keeping his remarks brief and staying on message, O'Toole sidestepped questions from reporters about how many of his candidates have been vaccinated. They have not released those numbers publicly.
Because he is more interested in saving the anti-vaxxers in his team from embarrassment than he's interested in defending your rights to end this pandemic and keep your kids safe and grow our economy.
Liberal leader Justin Trudeau took advantage of the opening, as he has since the beginning, reiterating that he called this election to get a clear mandate on pandemic regulations and mandatory vaccines.
In this election, Canadians are being asked what they want the future to look like.
But Trudeau was also dogged by accountability questions. His party announcing today that candidate Kevin Vaughn is no longer running under the Liberal banner after a media report that he was once charged with sexual assault. The charge was later dropped.
Mr. Trudeau's been off our show, and that hurts people.
We are still in the campaign for 2 days, getting the best possible result for Quebecers.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh and Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet campaigning in the Prairies and Quebec, respectively, also trying to make use of every last moment in front of the microphone. Marian Warnica, CBC News, Ottawa.
Several tight races in this province could cost Liberal incumbents seats as opposition candidates make their final push. Whitby, Richmond Hill, Davenport have all been identified as toss-ups, and so has Kitchener Centre, which might be one of the most interesting ridings in Canada. Dale Manukduk explains.
Hi, I'm Bisan Zubi. I'm the NDP candidate.
It's the last leg of a rapidly changing campaign in Kitchener Centre. The dynamic shifting after Liberal incumbent Raj Saini was forced to end his campaign amidst allegations of sexual harassment. His name will still appear on the ballot, but the Liberals' loss will be another party's gain.
A lot of liberal voters here were strategic voters for a really long time. And so right now, the strategic option is no longer that.
NDP candidate Bisan Zubi says her team had a fire lit under it after a recent visit from party leader Jagmeet Singh, giving her someone to point to when canvassing.
So I show a bit more about how our system works and how kind of the NDP can really amplify and enhance legislation that's coming through whatever government we end up with on Monday.
She's not the only one pounding the pavement.
Democracy is not glamorous. It's a bit sweaty, but it's important.
Green Party candidate Mike Morris finished second in 2019. That's when the Green Party skyrocketed from 3% in 2015 to 26% of the riding's votes.
There's a lot more folks saying, well, now I'm more open-minded. Tell me more. What is it you want to know from me? What are the things you'd be working towards? What is it that, a Green MP could do for our community?
Morris has also joined the campaign trail with his party's leader, a familiar tactic for toss-up ridings.
They feel that their presence here can tilt the voters in their favor. If they've written it off, if they figure there's no way or there's very little hope that we're going to win it, they're not going to expend much energy.
CBC reached out to Conservative candidate Mary Thorne but did not receive a response. Other ridings of note are Davenport, which the Liberals won by less than 1,500 votes in each of the last two elections, and Richmond Hill, where they won by just 212 votes 2 years ago. And the Prime Minister has visited multiple times during the campaign.
I'm feeling confident. We are doing everything in our power to make sure that we mobilize, we communicate, and we connect with a lot of constituents.
With less than 2 days to go, the time for big announcements has passed. Experts say turnout will be the key.
Voters can be shifting, and sometimes polls cannot catch that, and sometimes we don't see it until Election Day.
Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
To the pandemic now. Ontario is reporting 821 new COVID-19 cases today as Toronto ramps up its vaccination efforts. The city's Days of Vaction campaign wraps up tomorrow. The aim is to increase the rate of vaccination in certain communities where barriers exist. As Dahlia Ashry reports, some health experts say it's the right move.
Toronto City officials, including Mayor John Tory, spent Saturday morning in North York at one of the 92 vaccination clinics. The aim of Days of Vaction is to increase vaccination rates in certain parts of the GTA.
If we want to get to 90%, we have to do 300,000 plus more vaccinations. More than half of those people have already had their first dose. So we just have to get them to decide it's time to get the second dose.
This is the city's largest weekend mobile clinic, targeting areas where the vaccination rate falls below 65%. They're mainly in racialized and low-income communities where systemic and accessibility barriers exist.
The barriers that are there for people to access the vaccine, there's still challenges in navigating the systems. Of course, we know with neighborhoods that have higher refugee and newcomer populations, this continues to be an area where there's a real gap in access to the vaccine.
The 4-day vaccine campaign is aimed at removing these barriers. That's why the mobile clinics are deployed to high-traffic areas like subway stations, parks, and malls, and neighborhoods, including Rexdale and Taylor-Macy.
We're targeting both the neighborhoods where people are, but also the settings where they work, where they shop, where they commute, and where they play.
In some of these communities, people might work one job, maybe many jobs, maybe work shift work, and sometimes the standing vaccine clinics may not always be helpful. And so these weekend clinics can help to improve access.
Demand for vaccines may increase with vaccine passports rolling out this week. Some health experts say campaigns like this one are effective, not only for increasing the rate of vaccinations, but also building trust within communities to help decrease the spread of COVID-19.
I think this is really an important way to remove another layer of barriers that have been affecting certain communities more than others.
It's the unvaccinated people that tend to be in the hospital. So if we can target those people, then we're having less people at risk of being hospitalized and having severe COVID.
Almost 2,000 vaccines have been administered since the city launched Days of Vaction on Thursday. And there are plans for more weekend mobile clinics. Dahlia Ashry, CBC News, Toronto.
Toronto police say one person has died after being shot while in a vehicle in the Midland and Danforth area in Scarborough. Police say the incident took place last night at around 11 p.m. The vehicle was found crashed into a pole, and the man inside was found suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. He was transported to hospital but was pronounced dead.
This white vehicle behind me was apparently traveling northbound on Midland Avenue, and another vehicle pulled up beside it and opened fire on it.
A woman also in the vehicle at the time wasn't injured. Police are asking anyone who may have information to contact them. And police say a motorcyclist has died after a crash in Toronto's Weston neighborhood this afternoon. Police say they received a report of a crash involving a motorcycle and a van in the area of Lawrence Avenue West and Weston Road. The motorcyclist was pronounced dead on scene. The victim's identity has not been released. Well, this weekend is your last if you want to enjoy a swim at some Toronto pools. Almost all city pools closed on September 5th, but the remaining 9 will be open until the end of this weekend. For a list of the pools you can still visit, you can check the City of Toronto's website. I mean, we're still trying to hang on to these last days of summer, Sevilla.
We jumped in the pool today and we had that conversation. Do we want to keep it open past the first day of fall, which will be midweek this week? And if you can, you got major bragging rights, I'd say. Still summer-like temperatures around the GTA. Currently sitting at around 23 degrees. It's a north wind coming in at many stations, so it's a little bit less humid. It's quite nice, fresh feeling evening. If you're heading out to the TFC game, maybe bring a light sweater with you. We bottom out around 11, 12 degrees into the overnight period, and you will clock in a little bit of cloud cover with all of that sunshine for your morning dog walk tomorrow, so it will be a little fresh. And then another beautiful bluebird Sunday afternoon if you are heading out for the last Sunday of summer. We bid adieu to summer. Kind of sad when you think about it, but we have cozy sweater weather and pumpkin spice lattes to think about over the next little while. But hey, we've actually been really warm over the last little while. We haven't had a daytime high over the past couple weeks in the high teens, which normally we would this time of year. We've been cruising straight into the 20s. I will tell you though, in the long range, when that finally comes to an end and what the pattern and any rain will be for this upcoming long range forecast. Maribel.
Okay, we'll see you in a few minutes. Thanks, Sophia.
Sounds good.
The curtain is closing on this year's Toronto International Film Festival. The last screenings are tonight. It is the second time TIFF has taken place during the pandemic. As Yelena Adzik reports, the challenges of COVID-19 gave the event a new purpose.
There's no question the pandemic loomed large at this year's TIFF. The red carpets were lined with fans and demonstrators, and despite the vaccine mandates for attendees, there was a confirmed case of COVID-19 present at multiple events. However, on the whole, organizers tried their best to keep the spotlight on the stars and the stories on the screen. From tribute award winners such as Jessica Chastain batting the eyes of Tammy Faye to Dune director Denis Villeneuve, here's a look at some of the highlights of this year's fest.
It feels right to be here and just celebrating the fact that these films are getting an airing.
How are you feeling to be here?
I feel weird, you know, I mean, I feel really weird. It's like something that should be familiar, but it feels very new.
Movies, it's a nice way also to bring a bit of oxygen in life.
It meant so much to be able to come to Toronto, where I think people love and respect film.
Just a few of the bright moments from this year's Toronto International Film Festival, cementing an effort to stay positive amidst the challenges. Indigenous rights documentarian Alanis Obomsawin summed it up best when she was honored at the TIFF Tribute Awards press conference.
No matter how bad things are, or people do bad things to you, it's pretty bad. Well, that person also has something good about them, and that's what I really like to think about.
Yelena Adzik, CBC News.
Police feared the streets of Washington could turn violent today, but the city remained largely peaceful. A few hundred protesters gathered outside the Capitol building in support of rioters who stormed that building in January. Katie Simpson has the details.
Organizers had hoped for a better turnout as journalists easily outnumbered actual demonstrators. Those who did show up used the rally to amplify unsubstantiated claims that some of the rioters arrested after the Capitol attack have been mistreated.
I'm here to be with like-minded people and support the political prisoners who have been rotting in jail since January.
The majority of the people who are in there did nothing more than walk into the Capitol.
More than 600 people have been arrested in the wake of the January 6th riot. Some of their supporters have repeatedly tried to minimize what happened, with this rally the latest effort in that bid. Fearing there could be violence, police made their presence known.
Ahead of this demonstration, security around the Capitol was ramped up, and you can see there are riot officers with their shields on full display behind the crowd. It's not necessarily the same threat of January 6th that they are concerned about, with protesters crossing the barricades and heading into the building. They're more concerned about heated interactions between protesters and counter-protesters.
You're full of shit. You're full of shit. All they did was count the number of ballots.
There were a few heated moments illustrating the continued deep divide in this country between the vocal minority of voters who believe conspiracy theories that say the election was stolen and everybody else.
Would they make that up?
Listen. Yes, that's exactly the problem, is that people have been making stuff up that they could not.
How old are you? Did you grow up in the 60s? You got some bad LSD.
Personal insults aside, the rally remained largely peaceful and dispersed nearly as quickly as it began. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
The fallout continues today from the submarine deal dispute surrounding France and Australia. France has recalled its U.S. and Australian ambassadors after its deal with Australia to produce submarines was scrapped. And the controversy is rattling Western diplomacy. Dominic Velitis reports.
France's decision to recall its ambassadors in the United States and Australia has really sparked reaction today. Australia said it regrets the move, that it values the relationship it has with France, and that it will keep engaging Paris on other issues. A spokesperson for the United States State Department, meanwhile, described France as a vital ally and that the US would work to resolve the dispute in the coming days. But make no mistake, this is unprecedented. It's the first time France has recalled envoys from the two countries. The French Foreign Affairs Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian said it was an exceptional decision, but one justified due to the exceptional gravity of the situation. Paris is absolutely furious about AUKUS, the new Indo-Pacific Security Pact, and the subsequent sinking of its deal to build a fleet of conventional subs for Australia. It was worth somewhere in the region of $40 billion to the French, not to mention the hundreds of jobs it would have created. But that is just part of the story. The French, who have a presence of their own in the Pacific, say they were given little to no warning of Thursday's joint announcement from Australia, the UK and the US that they were forming this security pact. There is, I think, a feeling in Paris that they were cut out of the picture and that the United States is now siding with the UK in the post-Brexit world and not France or the European Union. Indeed, the whole incident has raised questions for the French about the relationships they have with some of their closest allies. Dominic Velitis, CBC News, Bristol, England.
Venice was the scene of a unique musical performance today, with members of a string quartet playing on one violin at the same time. The violin they were playing on was actually a boat floating down one of Venice's canals. The performance was a tribute to COVID-19 victims. Behind the quartet was a train of gondolas bearing flowers. The violin boat was christened the Violin of Noah, symbolizing rebirth following catastrophe. As Ontario goes through a fourth wave of COVID-19, families are experiencing greater food insecurity. Global Medic and Hand Up Toronto have partnered to help.
A lot of families are struggling as the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic rages on. We want to be helping food insecure families by bringing these food kits to their homes via contactless delivery.
Packaged grocery hampers are being delivered to those who need them. Each kit contains a variety of staple foods, including lentils, rice, and pasta. The two charities have worked together to provide 500 families with these kits each month. They're delivering 260 kits today. A GTA resident is hoping to raise greater awareness for multiple sclerosis through biking.
We're having fun too. It's a community event. We have a good time. We chat with the neighbours. We get everybody together. Call it a mini street party if you wish, but it's got a cause and a purpose, and it fulfills both functions.
Cole's daughter was diagnosed with MS in 2015. He then created Jan's Fans to participate in MS Bike, an ongoing fundraiser hosted by the MS Society of Canada. The organization is one of many that have pivoted online due to the pandemic. Today, Cole took part in a virtual event highlighting this year's bike season so far. Jan's Fans have reached $7,500 and hope to raise more in a local ride tomorrow. Great cause, Sophia. So what's the weather going to look like for local bike riding tomorrow?
They will have picture-perfect bluebird skies for that bike ride tomorrow. And of course, the virtual world, all is possible to help fundraise and join in those great causes. And the last Sunday of summer, what a perfectly timed big bike ride is. Well, fall comes in midweek. Fair temps and sunny skies. It's the name of the game for the short range forecast anyways. There are some rainy days to talk about. Over the long range, we have talked about cruising on by into the 20s over the past couple days. That will eventually come to an end. Let's take you day by day now. On Monday, a few degrees warmer. You're even sitting closer to 30 in the southwestern edge, but there is an east wind, so it'll be a little cooler for those of you in the western edge of the GTA. And then as you head into Tuesday, that humidity returns. Southerly flow will be a little bit more muggy for many of you, and that also ushers in a cold front that will bring a couple soggy days to us midweek. It means some rain and maybe even some thunderstorms or thunder showers Tuesday afternoon and evening, and then Wednesday afternoon, maybe lingering into Thursday as well. And that cold front will suck out all that humidity and make it quite a bit cooler for those of us that are looking forward to that sweater weather that we mentioned earlier, even back to a daytime high in the high teens, which we haven't seen for quite a while, for most of the season anyways. And then cooler and more active and even a few degrees below seasonal to end off the week and head into next weekend. And really, when you're talking about the feels like and the temperatures, what you see is what you get for this upcoming work week. We mentioned the best time maybe to close the pool. Well, Wednesday, September 22nd is the first day of fall. If you want to clock in daytime hours for that big pool closure this year, next Saturday is not looking too shabby, but if you can rally the troops a little earlier, tomorrow might be your best bet before and after that big bike ride.
Okay, that's right. And a dip in the pool. What a nice way to say goodbye to summer. Thanks,
One
Sophia.
last one.
And that's our show for you tonight. Thank you for watching. Stay caught up on news anytime. cbcnews.ca. Good night, everyone.